Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you have been missing my crusty voice because I'm back home now in the Bay, which means that I have the little Amazon microphone that I bought, so I'll be taking full advantage of that and talking partially also because I'm too lazy to put subtitles manually on every single clip to explain what's going on, so I might just do a one take and see how it goes and just talk you through this video. But this is all of the content that I had for the last 7 weeks of my 9-week internship in London. And to be honest, because I wasn't really paying that much attention to like the narrative arc later on, I mostly just took videos of like food and wind rustling leaves on trees because that is what catches my attention on the day-to-day. But this was my first time working full-time in person in a foreign city, and that's like a confluence of 3 different factors that really made for a great tornado of emotions and growth from challenges this summer. So yeah, it was my first time working in the finance industry, so to speak, but it was really non-traditional because it was a very small firm, like probably around 25 employees total, and in the office it was only max around 8 people at a time, and it was completely open layout, and it felt really like a startup because there was like nowhere to take calls, like so whenever people were on calls we were all just kind of shouting over each other and muting when we could. But beyond that, I got to work on my own research projects, and I made some pretty little slide decks to like show off my deliverables at the end, which I just packaged away in a folder. Who knows if anybody will ever look at it, but you know, that's not really my problem anymore, and I'm proud of the research that I did because I thought the topics and the methodology that I used for desktop research was pretty fun and cool. Basically, if anybody's interested, I was researching like cow dairy production, greenhouse gas emissions mitigation. What a mouthful. But anyways, there's like some fun stuff that's like feeding cows better food so they fart less, basically. And then the other research topic was on agricultural biologicals, which is like alternatives to synthetic fertilizers, which have a lot of chemicals in them and can lead to nutrient runoff into water bodies, which can lead to algal blooms and then deoxify the water and kill marine life. But basically I was in charge of researching stuff like that, and then also helping with day-to-day like due diligence. And what the heck is DDD? Like basically it's just doing background research on like a potential investment, and for me, because I was on the impact team, I thought about like what kind of impact might be achieved both socially and environmentally, and how likely it was, and whether or not it like aligned with a lot of the mainstream metrics that impact frameworks like GIN or like gender challenges for like woman equity, whether they aligned or not. So that was like the gist of my work, and I'll talk more about like my career growth over the summer, but eventually in the span of 9 weeks I was able to settle into a sort of routine where I would like cook for myself as much as possible because it really was a time for me to like not think as much about work, about friends and family being far away. It was also a good time for me to listen to podcasts, and shout out to a podcast called Philosophize This, which I thought was really great. I've been listening to it from the start for a while, and this guy, you can support him on Patreon, I think, has just been going from like the beginning of time, from Plato and Aristotle and really ancient philosophers like Lao Tzu, all the way to modern. And I definitely have not even gotten through maybe like even an eighth of it, But my sister told me to skip to listen to a podcast on roots and community because I was personally feeling like really unmoored just being far away from home, and I felt like I packaged up myself into like this shipping box and then went to London, and I was just working my like 9 to 6 p.m., sometimes even later, and like having a lot of fun exploring and eating different places for lunch and stuff, and really throwing myself into work that I cared about and seeing so many new things. It was like a really big privilege to be able to be there and be paid for that work. But yeah, also just feeling really far away from everything that was familiar to me, and I think being in a new city made me realize just exactly what my values as a person were, because not that they were put into stark contrast in London, but people around me obviously didn't grow up in the Bay. In fact, it was like really international and diverse in a different way than the, so to speak, melting pot of America and immigrants. Immigrants hopefully continuing on. But yeah, it was like a different mix because there were a lot more people from the Middle East there that I hadn't been like encountering as much, living in the Bay where there's kind of a lot of white and Asian people. So that was really interesting, but also just generally the culture there, like I think what I was grounding myself based off of, that was really redundant. What I was basing my perception of British culture off of was two things. One was the Great British Baking Show, and I feel like it's pretty rare that bakers are mean. And another was Jeremy Clarkson's farm, and it's just this like really rich famous dude who buys a couple acres of land and he's just going at farming with very little knowledge but a lot of determination. So yeah, that wasn't much to go off of, honestly, and I very quickly realized that, like many other cities, it's really difficult to make new friends and establish your own community there, especially when you're like a temporary person there. Like, I feel like summer interns always get a bad rep for being annoying, loud, obtrusive, and unaware in a new city. And I was trying my best not to do that, so I was quiet as a little dormouse, funneling in and out of the tube and the buses. But I realized that going from 0 friends in a city, like knowing absolutely nobody, living in your own crusty flat with your own crazy landlord and your own crazy roommates, to 1 friend in the city is quite difficult unless you join like a dance club or some kind of regularly occurring community, which was difficult because I was only there for 9 weeks and most of the programs extended far beyond that. So it's not that I was lonely, because I knew going in that I was pretty unlikely to make any kind of lasting relationship in London. But it was still a little bit jarring to be like a fully technically functioning member of society, like working, paying rent,
that would be great.
paying taxes on things I buy, and like going out to eat, sightseeing, doing all of that stuff, traveling over the weekends, like taking the Eurostar to France, which was amazing. Actually, no, I got food poisoning there, so a little bit not amazing, but doing all of these things that would qualify me as like a full person without really knowing or interacting in any meaningful way with the people who like were local to there. So that was interesting to me, and I think after spending some time abroad in London, and then also thinking about my experience with New York City when I did that spring quarter there, through the Stanford program, I may just be jumping to a conclusion here, but I think I'm more of like a suburban or small town kind of gal than like a huge city person, because I don't really like the hustle and bustle that much. Like, it's kind of smelly, it's not nice to take walks outside, you don't necessarily see the stars so much, and there's like no space to garden or anything like that. Not that I garden that much, but theoretically if I did want to, it'd be harder in a city. So I think that's just a realization I made in terms of my preferences. I have to swallow because I feel like I'm like drooling as I'm talking in this long monologue. And by the way, I'm going completely off script. I wrote these little like reminders of what to talk about at specific segments in the video, but first of all, I hope this is recording because this is now like an 11-minute clip, and if it gets deleted somehow, I'm gonna be a little sad. But now I'm just rambling on because I'm making these videos for myself as well as for anybody who's interested in my humdrum life for some reason. But yeah, there were some pretty fulfilling moments when I felt like I was working hard, but actually like using my brain when I was working. There was literally, I made a sticky on my laptop that I left there for like from week 2 to the end of my internship, which was basically saying, think critically, don't just be like a spreadsheet monkey, and like do your tasks. Because my most inspiring and I feel like impactful moments were when I could take like a step back and just think about a problem as an interesting phenomenon, and then kind of structure an approach to it that I thought was like rigorous and meaningful, instead of just like asking for directions and then trying to do my best and make it look as pretty as possible and then waiting for like approval. And I think that's something that has inspired me to like do more research on my own, because I realized that like I have all the resources to do what I think of as like pretty good research, minus the actual like data collection and field trial part of research and like knowledge generation. Other resources like honestly ChatGPT, Consensus AI, research and scholarly work online, also like blogs and databases, those are all available to me like whenever I want to look at them. So moving forward, especially because I'm doing a gap year, yeah, I have time. So I am putting together like a Google Doc of things that I'm interested in researching, and I'm gonna try to keep chipping away at it, and at some point I have like some, I guess mentors is what you would call them, but people that I like respect as being smart individuals. And I think when I have something to show for myself, I'll like ask them to take a look at it and give me some feedback. So in a way, I guess I'm creating my own PhD program. Maybe that's speaking too highly of whatever desktop research I'll be doing, but that's something I'm excited to do. And here are some apologies for the abrupt, bad segue, but here are some personal growth pains that I experienced while I was in London. The first of which was coming from career. So, as I said before, it was like the first time I was really immersed in like, you know, Monday through Friday in person, kind of a corporate startup hybrid atmosphere. So like I remember being super gagged when I realized that lunch breaks were only supposed to be like 30 minutes instead of like an hour, and that people regularly worked beyond 6 p.m. But beyond those like superficial things, it was also just like I thought I was a great communicator, And honestly, like, my mentors and people always told me that I was good at talking to people, good at like intuiting what people meant, and I think that is true. But the other side of communication is being able to actually express how you yourself are feeling in a timely and non like circulatory ignore that manner. So a lot of the times when I felt like I was saying something that may make someone unhappy, I found myself kind of being really wishy-washy. I would talk around it. I would say like maybe this. I would edge my way up to it but not quite say it, and then I would leave people confused or asking more questions, and then I would say what I meant, which is frankly just a waste of time and also bad for me because then I got like confused myself and didn't get what I want. And also it's easy to take advantage of people like that. It's not the same as people pleasing, I would say, because I have like strong preferences and my own opinions, but rather it's being so like accommodating to the point that you just get stepped on, which is bad as like a young woman in a workplace that's like, you know, can be pretty alpha male sometimes, especially in the finance industry. That was a real growth point for me, and one that I'm still working on, which is like not trying to take absolute responsibility for how someone feels about how you honestly feel. And like you can't even jump to conclusions about how someone will react until you say what you mean to say in a very clear, explicit way. Did that just rhyme? Okay, anyways. What I mean to say is that I went into work thinking that everybody had my best, the best intentions for me, and that they were invested in me. When in reality, and like people told me this later, like my family, my friends, when in reality people are honestly self-centered, as they ought to be, honestly, because we're all individuals at some point in this world, so we have to watch out for ourselves. And not all people, but some people in the workplace definitely will take advantage of you to get themselves ahead. And when you cannot clearly express what you mean and you continue to beat around the bush, you make yourself really liable to being taken advantage of. So that was something that I learned, and something that I'm going to continue working on going forward. Now, the other side of my personal growth arc in London was regarding dating. I hope my swallowing is not really loud because it's literally just my spit. Like, I can understand why that guy who played, like, the king in Hamilton was spitting on stage the whole time, because I'm not even singing and the saliva is going crazy. And it's not just because of the fish and chips on the screen. But basically, I was on Hinge in London. And at first I was like, should I even do this? Because what about safety? Like, I don't know the city well. I don't have my getaway bike or car. I'm just like a commuter walking around on public transit. So I was like, am I gonna be safe? But then I was like, no, I can just meet people in public like a normal person. So I decided to go on Hinge, and I went on a couple of dates with like the same person, and it was honestly really a great way to see the city and try new food and get to know a new person. So those were all totally pros. The other side of it is that I went in with very vague expectations. And it's not that I had no expectations going in, because I definitely did have like some murky ball of desires. Like, oh, this is what a successful dating experience would be in London. But I couldn't like explicitly say them, which made it very difficult to feel like I was doing the right thing there, because I'm a person who likes to genuinely get to know people, and I'm not really like meet one time and then like dip and move on to the next, and that's not like how I have fun with people. And in a transient and very international city like London, especially when I myself am transient, I was operating in a set of like impossible circumstances for me to like make a genuine lasting relationship, much less a romantic relationship. So I've said before that like I didn't really believe in the friends to lovers dynamic, because I said that, you know, when you meet someone, you very quickly know whether there's any possibility of romantic interest. So by pretending to be friends as a way of like making something romantic happen, I was like, I don't like that. That's like ulterior motives. But now that I'm thinking about it, I see a lot of value in honestly just like going about your own damn life, doing things that you like, you know, being a member of some kind of community.
Wait, it was the best cocktail Dina's had in a year. And I live in New York. It's
falling into a pattern, like a partnership, a kinship with someone that you respect and that you like as a person, before even having to consider the possibility of romantic compatibility. And so that's like, in conclusion, Hinge may not be for me, especially not in short time periods. And that was a personal growth point for me this summer. But being abroad has made me realize that my own personal greatest strength is that I had a great family growing up, that they loved me unconditionally and supported me in everything that I wanted to try. And believe me, I have wanted to try a lot of different things because I'm a very all or nothing person. I've thought about like dropping out of college, about going into entertainment, about becoming an artist, about becoming a consultant at BCG, and all these different kinds of things. And I'm definitely like a go-getter of sorts, but through this gap year, through seeing my sister in London for a week when she came to visit me, which was like, I needed that way more than I thought I did, I just realized that spending time with family is like always going to be my top priority, regardless of what is going on with my ambitions. And yeah, I think there's a reason that I think about Christmas throughout the entire year, which is that it's a time when family absolutely comes together and like spends time, makes food together, fights and gets in each other's space and privacy and all that good stuff that comes with having a big family. And yeah, those are a set of my strong values that I will never compromise on. Beyond that, I realized just how important creative expression was to me. Like, I love art and going to museums. I think my favorite artist is Van Gogh now, especially after seeing his work in Amsterdam in person. And I just love the way that his like brushstrokes are so pronounced and like not all blended together, even though blending and like great technique is really impressive. I think his art is just so heartfelt, that I really like it. So in conclusion, I'm so happy to be back home in the Bay, so happy to be back with my family, and really grateful for the opportunity to take a gap year before going back for a master's program. And I want to take these next steps with patience with intentionality and a lot of curiosity for the world and the people around me. And I just want to be a person who notices things and pursues the things that they're interested in and is not afraid of expressing themselves in the most genuine way to them in that moment. So thank you for joining me in my vlog about London, and there are more to come because I went to France and Amsterdam because probably the best thing about the city of London is just its proximity to other great places. And you can probably tell at this point that I'm a little bit of a London hater. I don't know why, but the economy is shit, I think. Prices are really, really high for food, for rent. The flats are kind of falling apart, at least the one that I was in. I showered without the bathroom light on for like 6 weeks because it was broken and my landlord didn't want to fix it. Yeah, all that great stuff about being an adult in a big city. And also, I just feel like immediately I could feel that the people in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, were like so much more warm and friendly than the people in London on average. Like, I felt like I could make friends in Amsterdam a lot faster than if I stayed longer in London. So I'm a little bit of a London hater. I don't know how I got into this topic. Oh yeah, its proximity to other great places. But you can look forward to that. And thanks for joining me on this chapter of my story. Eat fudge now. As if any of it matters.
Not fudge, custard.
Oh, well.